Hey, welcome to Old Ass Movie Reviews. I'm Scott. There's Dave somewhere in this position. And today we have a special guest, Craig Edwards from Empire Records, Rex Manning's male fan. And I would argue #1 fan.
Yeah.
Likely.
I would definitely argue that. So welcome, Craig. Thank you so much for coming on the show
Thank you.
with us.
Thank you very much. A pleasure to be here.
Yeah. You had asked me before we started the show, was this the first time I had seen Empire Records, or had I seen it before? This was the first time I'd ever seen it, which there's been a lot of movies I have just now catching up on. Ask Dave.
You're welcome, by the way.
Yes. And I can't believe I slept on this one. I'll just give a quick impression right off the bat. I started watching this movie and I felt I shouldn't have liked it. And what I mean is it started to irritate me at the beginning with Lucas. But as I started to watch and started to see the other characters and start to realize I am looking at a slice of America in the 90s, and basically this movie could actually be timeless, I believe, because you're seeing kids or young adults dealing with the same stuff that everybody did. And I was like watching that, and when that light bulb went off, it's like, oh my God, I love this movie. So it was really cool to see that.
It's got a truth to it, I think, because Carol Heikkinen, who wrote it, lived the life of those kids in a record store. And so I think anytime you're writing from that level of experience, that it's your story to some extent, I think there's a truth that as long as, the filmmakers do their job and they get the right cast, you're going to have a truthful movie.
Yeah, that makes sense. Absolutely.
And that's what it felt like. And it was neat to see. I'm all over the place on this. One of my favorite performances is, I think it was Robin Tunney's Deborah. I thought she brought such a, I don't know. My heart broke for Deborah in this, and I thought it was so well done. But
she was an interesting. Go ahead.
No. I did want to say one of my favorite performances that male Rex Manning fan, and we'll get to him later. But yeah, Robin was great in that role.
Well, some happy accidents there, including your male Rex Manning fan. So there's a little teaser for stories to come. But Robin, they wanted her character to have an edge, obviously, and they were planning on facial tattoos with makeup. And I don't remember all the ins and outs, but I know that they never quite worked the way they wanted. Plus, she still had some around the back of her neck and things. But there was going to be something on her face somewhere. And I don't know if her people didn't like it or the time it was going to take to keep that up. Whatever it was, that went by the wayside. And they were still casting about in rehearsals and pre-production for something to give her that edge. And somebody lit on the shaving of the head. And that was kind of improv. It was not in the original script.
Wow.
And they built an entire day into the schedule to shoot that scene because you had one shot at it.
Yeah.
And once that hair started coming off, you were locked.
Yeah.
And so they set, 3 or 4 cameras up around that bathroom set and had it all rigged up, ready to go. And she did it. So what you're watching is absolutely for real.
I was wondering whether that was her idea or somebody else's, or if she was just the one girl who said, I'll play that character, and I'm willing to shave my head. I was wondering how that came about, because an actress generally will not shave their head.
That's a big ask.
Yeah,
it is, and she was in on it. I don't know if it was her idea right from the get-go. Somebody else may have conceived of the initial notion, but she never bought it. She was for it from the get-go. What's funny is she went from that. She left our show and went almost immediately to the craft.
Oh, nice.
And so she shows up at the craft with her head shaved, and so they had to lay out $3,500 for a wig for her.
Oh, wow.
And so they were not happy with us. So,
no.
The Kraft versus Empire Records softball game got a little salty on the next
You think? Wow. Yeah, because I wondered about that when I saw her shave her head, and I was like, "Oh my God, that's a big ask of somebody." It's but she and she was committed to that role, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
She was dating the gaffer. I mean, these kids were not kids. The only actual kids we had that were under 18 was Brendan Sexton, Warren Beatty,
Right.
and actually Liv Tyler, who had not yet reached 18.
Oh, really?
And so Liv, who had already been in Aerosmith videos and had lived a more worldly life than any 5 crew members, had to attend school every day with Brendan. So,
oh, geez. That's funny. That's funny.
So was this shot in, was this in Wilmington or?
It was. There's a lot of scenes. There were reshoots in Los Angeles, and they took a unit up that nobody from Wilmington, I don't think, went, but somebody put together a crew and went to Atlantic City and shot exteriors for that sequence. So that was not stock footage. It was shot for the film. The storyline changed in editing. That's part of the reason they did reshoots. Originally, Lucas was not going to Atlantic City to win money to save so that Joe could buy the store away from Music Town. He just went because he went. Zen. A woman came to the store and they had an affair. She was a married woman and they had an affair on the couch. And then she said, let's go to Atlantic City. And he was like, okay. And just went and lost the store's receipts, which made him a much less positive character in a lot of ways. And so that was part of the reason I think that they decided in the reshoots to add. So the sequence where he's in the office and Renee Zellweger pops her head in and says, count up the receipts, whatever, let's get the show on the road. That was a reshoot in Los Angeles to get that storyline more into place.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, it works a lot better this way, I think, than it would have.
I would agree.
Had they kept that main story.
Yeah, there is if you guys did enjoy the film and you want to see a variation, there is out there a disc called the Fan Remix Edition. It's an actual licensed release. They did a second release.
Oh, no kidding.
And it restores as much as they could of the original storyline, including the woman that comes to the store and her husband shows up. He's a wrecker driver. He shows up during the rave. And so there is a whole different feel to how the film goes. It's a little bit like the Donner cut of Superman 2.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's funny.
Very cool. I
didn't even know that existed.
Mm-hmm.
So, what was did you work crew at first originally on this?
Yeah. Stefania Girolami Goodwin was an assistant director in town. She is the daughter of Enzo Castellari, the director of the original Inglourious Basterds, and many other Italian films. And she had moved to Wilmington and was working here and took a liking to me on Super Mario Brothers and became one of my favorite bosses in the 90s.
Oh, great.
She got hired. The ADs, the assistant directors, were Joelle Siegel, who is the son of a famous casting lady. I'm forgetting her name. I think it starts with a P. And she's been casting forever, so he had a foothold, in the business. And Phil Patterson, who was one of the assistant directors, he's out of Australia, and he worked on Crocodile Dundee and 12 Monkeys, and he's in with Terry Gilliam. If you watch the documentary about the Man of La Mancha movie, he's all over it. He was the first assistant director in that. He's the big blonde Australian fellow talking. That was our second assistant director. And then Stefania was the second assistant director, and she put in for me to be the production assistant running first team, and that jargon means coordinating the actors through makeup, hair, and wardrobe.
Cool. That's a lot of work, man. Holy crap.
Yeah, it was a big show in terms of these, and these kids were all rapscallions, and they were saucy and sassy. So we had our hands full. One night during the rave, we had 21 speaking part actors, and that was one of the biggest days I ever worked, where I had to keep track of 21 people downtown shooting exteriors, which was I was stepping and moving all
I bet. That's not a job I would want. I would have patience for that.
Well, I'll just go on and tell this story now. Yeah. During that sequence, we shot for 2 weeks downtown for those exteriors, all nights. And we had base camp about 2 blocks from where the set, we had blocked off. We had all of it. We owned the street. And one night I'm up at set with some actors, and they say, okay, so-and-so and so-and-so, I forget which two, are back in base camp napping because it's 3 a.m. We need them for the next shot. Okay, so I head back there. knock on the doors, don't get an answer. Knock on the door, don't get an answer. Finally open the door. Hey, hello, not in there.
Oh,
Not in their trailer. Oh, good. Where could they be?
Oh, man.
So, and it wasn't 3. It was like 1 in the morning.
Oh.
So I'm running all around like a headless chicken. Where could these kids be? And they were both 1920, somewhere in that neighborhood. And finally, one of the Teamsters, one of the truck drivers who was just standing around because the trucks weren't moving, said, who are you looking for? I said, this actor and that actor. Oh, I just saw him go in the gay bar up there. What? All right. So I run to the gay bar, which is right midway between the set and the base camp. Sure enough, they've been there. They just ordered drinks. They're getting served underage. And I grab them both by the ears and I'm like, come with me. And I walk them out of the gay bar and I go, do not go to the gay bar while we're shooting. Go on the weekends. And,
Go in your own time.
Exactly. So that was what I was facing for, from October to December of 94.
Oh, geez, that's funny. Those are the stories you don't hear all the time.
No.
That's great.
No, they knew. The assistant directors called all of the actors in, all the kids. They didn't call the adults in. Anthony LaPaglia and Debbie Mazar were left out of this meeting.
Right.
But all of the kids were brought in, and they said, look, guys, we know you smoke pot. We know you drink. Do all you want when we're not working.
Right.
Don't show up to work high. Don't show up drunk. And certainly don't do it at work. And every one of them, I promise, will not. 3 weeks later, we're shooting at the studio. I walk up and knock on Coyote Shiver's door. He opens the door holding a joint. Yeah, do you need me to come in? Oh, do you want to hit? Yeah. No, thank you. I'm good.
God, I worked with guys like that in restaurants and on construction sites. Like, dude.
Ethan, he was Ethan Randall, I think, at the time, but he's Ethan Embry now, which is a weird thing about him, his grandfather, honoring his grandfather. But anyway, Ethan, the entirety of the show was carving a bong out of a log. So that was the other big thing. Every time he was not at set, he was sitting on the steps of his trailer, whittling on this giant log that he was going to eventually be a bong somehow.
Well, it kept him busy and out of trouble.
So he was very much like
did
his
keep him
character.
off the streets. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Off the streets. That's
Wow.
great.
Because there's this scene with him with the brownies and the Gwar video, which I just smiled with that. It's like, oh yeah.
So much about this movie. You just said 2 things, 2 stories just popped up. So the pot brownies were real. The prop department, why not? So they baked 3 pans of pot brownies and brought them in.
Oh,
And it spread. You wouldn't say it around management, but the word spread through the crew.
Right.
They're real pot brownies. And somebody warned Ethan, and Ethan just smiled that Ethan, sure, no problem. Well, the thing was, everybody was like, make sure he gets it on the first take. Why were they so interested in that? Oh, because they're going to get all the leftover brownies when the scene's in the can. And that's exactly what happened. And so the entirety of the rest of that day was, people with edibles in them,
Oh my God.
That's freaking funny. That's funny.
So the Gwar thing, this is wild. We had a producer's assistant. I forget his name. I'm terribly sorry to him because this is a great story. But he heard Gwar was coming to town. We had a venue called the Mad Monk. I think it was the Mad Monk. And we got fairly big bands playing there, Jimmy Buffett and Gwar and things like that. And Gwar was coming to town literally in the middle of the shoot. And without trying to go through all the logistics how he did this, he basically suggested that they take a video camera, a digital video camera, which is brand new. And we had access to one, take it out there and shoot what they could shoot with Ethan if Gwar was amenable. And Gwar said, sure, as long as he understands that we're still going to do our shtick, we're going to do, our music. Mm-hmm. You can't interrupt the show, but we'll filter him into the show. And they did. And they got that footage on the fly, again, totally improv, not in the script.
Wow.
And we got that incredible sequence and, gave the movie a little more musical cred, to be honest.
Yeah.
So
happy accidents, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Talking about Gwar real quick. The only story that I have with Gwar is when I used to do a lot of comic book shows, every comic book show my wife and I would go to, or me and my friends would go to, especially in New York and the Northeast, Gore was inevitably at every one of these shows. We would literally run into Gore, like literally just run into. You'd be standing there, turn around, wham! There's some half-naked guy there in a Gore costume. You're like, Gore's here. I was wondering when you guys were going to show up.
Set your clock by them.
But they were always really nice. I mean, honest to God, I've never heard them cause any trouble at any of the shows. I mean, they did their show, and that was the trouble. But they never like went around and caused trouble outside of whatever their show was. So they were always nice enough, cats. I wouldn't recognize any of one of them if they would have come out without their costume on.
No, of course not. Yeah, and it shows that they were nice, that they were willing to let this goofy movie come and jump into their show like that.
That's incredible. And they didn't know. I mean, they probably didn't know whether it was going to be a hit, a big movie, small movie, or whatever.
Right.
I was looking up on IMDb. It was like $10 million to make the movie, and it made $303 million.
Wow. Okay.
That's what I was finding on online. So
yeah,
those numbers might be a bit different, but if that's true, and that was just, I guess, the United States tally. So if that's true, that movie made bank. I don't know why they wouldn't leave it in the theater, unless it was all rental. I don't know. I didn't break it down that much.
I was going to ask about that, and it very well could be that it's enjoyed a resurgence or as with a cult following. But were you or other people of the cast and crew that were you surprised by the reception to this movie or how it resonated with people? Were you expecting such love, I guess?
Well, it didn't have it because of that theatrical run, So the initial release, we never got it in the theater in Wilmington, which was disappointing. And then it dribbled out onto video, sort of. And and it didn't have, it wasn't something that was flying off the shelves. Blockbuster carried 2 or 3 copies. They didn't have a shelf full. There weren't 20 copies. It wasn't Jurassic Park or, name any other movie from that time period that was a Blockbuster. So it took a while. That was a cult that grew over time. And I think that they started to find each other as the internet opened up. And I think they started to find each other as fans. And that's where the film started to gain some word of mouth and gained a following. And there are people now that of a certain age that I think it's a touchstone film for them, which is, that's an honor to have worked on something, even if that's not the bulk of humanity, but, it's a small cadre of people. It's still really cool for them to tell you that something you worked on touched them and was important to them.
So, on that part, Kat and I, my wife, were talking a little bit about it last night because I had seen it once many years ago. I couldn't remember it, so I loved watching it again. Like it was like watching it for the first time. But I love slice of life movies, like a day in the life of movies. And this was a perfect day in the life of type movie. And usually they follow like 1 or 2 people, but this followed the entire crew. This was everybody in that store. This was the owner, the manager, the kid, all the kids. It was just really nice to see everybody's interaction. That writing was solid. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that writing. That woman wrote a great script, and
she did. And then
impressed with it.
The happy accidents and the things that were brought to it, and the bits that were added, and rewrites and reshoots and all of that. Thankfully, nothing jarred or worked against what she had started, the core of what she added, brought to the table. And it was just a wild shoot. It really was. We had more. I worked on it longer than any other feature film, just because there was a rehearsal period. Alan Moyle, the director, greatly believed that it was only going to work if he could get the cast to have the chemistry that this crew would have had working together.
Oh, yeah.
And so, however he worked it out, he got them to put up the money to have a rehearsal period that was weeks long. I mean, like all of October or September, some amount, but it was weeks of rehearsal. And we would go in every day, and Brendan and Liv are going to school, and they're doing rehearsals on the set. They're doing improv rehearsals to get around each other. Things came out of the rehearsals. I don't know if they were in the script originally or not, but for example, the music choice sequence followed by the M&Ms, or the M&Ms being a part of the music choice sequence,
Right.
and then the veto. All of that was stuff that was happening in rehearsal. And I don't know if that just
nice.
organically came about because Alan was bringing it to the cast.
Mm-hmm.
But they were doing Pilates together, which Pilates were a new thing then.
Oh, yeah.
To try to bond them. And we did all of that. And then we finally started rolling cameras, 3-4 weeks later, whatever it was, and shot until late December of 94.
Mm-hmm.
And things were still, on the last day of shooting, something that both of you have mentioned as being something you enjoyed in the film was only added on that last day of shooting, and that was the male Rex Manning fan. So,
wow. No kidding.
So I guess I'll go ahead and tell that story. So,
yes, I got to hear this story. I'm interested.
So they brought in some extras on the last day, and we had lost most of the cast. I don't remember who was still shooting. Robin was still there at the end. I know that. So she still had something going on. She was one of the last to leave. But there, not the whole cast, maybe third of the cast was left on the last day. And they said, we're going to get some more shots of the autograph line. And so we got these extras, so let's gear that up. I got a wild hair and ran to wardrobe and said, I think I might want to see if they'd let me be in the autograph line. You got anything wild for me to wear? And they didn't bat an eye. They just turned to the thing and came back. Here you go. And as I was putting this shirt on, they handed me two-tone blue suede shoes. Here, put these on too. Okay.
Nice.
And I get all this on, and they go, Rex Manning almost wore that. It was just a little too large on him. I'm wearing that outfit I'm wearing could have been Rex Manning's outfit.
That's funny.
I run to hair and I say, look at this. Can you do anything here? Well, they, as much as they could, they puffed it up and they gold streaks and tipped me.
Nice.
Now I run to the director and I go to Alan and I say, would you like me to be in the autograph line? Oh, yes. Oh, yes, I do. And so they got me in the line, and I see through rehearsal that they're going to run the camera tracking up the line.
Nice.
So I asked the girl in front of me, split second, I said, you have a makeup mirror on you? And she did. And she pulled out the makeup mirror, and I said, well, let's do this bit of business. You be looking at the mirror, and then I'm going to ask you, when we know the camera's on us, I'll ask you to let me look in the mirror. And we did it. And as you guys can see, that part, ended up in there.
That's great.
Well, we had done that sequence, and then Alan said, all right, boys, put the camera on Craig. We're going to get some shots of Craig. All right, great.
That's great.
So he puts it on me, and he gave me 3 different directions. He said, this first take, you're cooler than he is. And so, and he's kissing his ring to the audience. And so I did the 2 finger. And everybody kind of enjoyed that, and they cut. And he gave me in a second round, and to be honest, I don't remember the second round, but it was something specific, but it was still relatively restrained. And then on the third one, he said, okay, we're going to do another one. I don't want you to go wild. I want you to be floored by this guy kissing his ring. And so then that's the reaction.
It's a great take.
That's great. That is fantastic.
So that was it. So the finale of that story is the studio teacher who was teaching Brendan and Liv was a good friend, and she was dating the music supervisor at the time. And so she was out in LA hanging out as they're editing the film. So she sends me a letter, and I get this letter, and it says, hey, I've got good news, bad news. They love you, but they bumped the shot before you. You're not in it. And they're really having a problem with the fact that there's a shot of the line without you in it. And then the very next shot is there you are standing there in the line. And so I literally did not know if after that letter, I was on tenterhooks until September of 95 when I finally got to rent the film, that I saw that I actually was in it. And then got the double surprise that they had added the cast credit for me at the end, which I didn't know was happening. So
that's very cool. Because you didn't have a speaking role in it. It was just it was just a visual. Usually, if I'm not mistaken, speaking roles get precedence, correct?
I was a featured extra. I really didn't deserve that. And what's weird is because they kept editing the film, there's people listed around me that aren't actually in the film. A friend named Anthony Hemingway. He's a director now. He directed Red Tails.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know if he's in the film or not, but I don't think he's in it. But even bigger than that, Tobey Maguire's listed in those credits.
Yeah, I saw that.
I spotted
he's
that,
not in the film. He was a friend of Johnny Whitworth's, and he showed up Johnny said, "Can I bring my friend in and can we find something for him to do?" And Alan was yes to almost every question. And so, yeah, they flew him in. He had some problems in the Raleigh airport with something he shouldn't have had in his luggage.
Gee, I wonder
That would
what.
have been. But he finally made it to Wilmington, and they shot some stuff with him, and it was so jettisonable, they just never even included him. But he must have been in a cut when they did the credits, so they credited him, and he's out of the movie. He's not even in the fan remix edition, I don't think.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Dang.
That's crazy.
Well,
Yeah,
you
this
mentioned
wasn't- I'm sorry, go ahead.
you mentioned something in the luggage, and of course my brain goes to Austin Powers and a certain.
It was his Swedish penis pump, actually, yes. Yeah. You guys are breaking the news that Tobey Maguire was using a Swedish penis pump.
Not my bag, baby.
Yeah. In fact, he did. I remember he told the Raleigh airport that was Mike Myers. So.
That's
Wow.
funny. Yeah, I like this movie a lot, and the character that LaPaglia plays. For the longest time, I was trying to figure out why he was putting up with so much shit from the one kid, and then it comes to because the kid talks about his mom kicked him out at 10, and then 3 years later he was discovered by the manager, and I'm like, oh shit, the manager basically adopted this kid.
Yeah.
That's to him, that's his son.
Right.
No wonder he's being. I mean, it's not a slap in the face moment, but I'm not a dumb guy. I can put 2 and 2 together. But it was really good. I really enjoyed that scene. Like being able to put that together. That's good writing. That's not slapping you in the face with a moment. That's making you think about the character and the characters. I thought that was really good. And LaPaglia, I like him anyway. So.
Yeah, that's one thing this movie did for me is as I watched it, it just light bulb moment after moment and relatable topics and so man, I would have loved to have worked in a place like this.
Yeah, no kidding.
And as you know, Craig, we didn't have anything like that in McLeansboro.
No, I think you would. Not even Carbondale. I think you would have to go to St. Louis or something.
Yes.
To find a store like that. I think. Anthony, I do want to tell a couple of stories with Anthony because he was a great guy. Really enjoyed working with him. Later, we met up again he came back to town and I went to just say hello and we were hanging out and he called me. I don't guess he liked the producers very much because he said that he had positive thoughts about the film for me. Maybe not everybody else, but that was nice to hear anyway.
Yes.
But he had a very nice SUV when those were, relatively a new thing.
Right.
And, so one day we had asked early on, the production assistants had asked, we were all over the studio. There were dressing rooms. This is a whole story in and of itself, but there were dressing rooms that were built into Soundstage 8 over on one side. And we were mainly on Soundstage 4. That's where the record store was. And there was a big field in between. And, so we were running all over with this thing though. And we asked, we have a golf cart? And they said no. And then about a week later, they called us in and they said, all right, we're going to give you the golf cart. And what it was everything, the actors were being so lackadaisical. It's hard to get them to set. Mm-hmm. They were trying to find anything they could do to shave a few seconds to get, money stop flowing out. Right. So they said, all right, we're going to give you the golf cart. But here's the thing. No shenanigans. And you, under no circumstances, ever let any of the actors drive the golf cart. We promise. Off we go. And one of the other production assistants, a wonderful young man named Jeff, let Brendan Sexton drive the golf cart. He immediately somehow gets it going 40 miles an hour right into Anthony LaPaglia's SUV. $3,000 damage to the door.
Oh my God.
I mean, like he sits down, pushes down the gas pedal, and it's in the side of the SUV. Just like that.
God.
So Anthony was very unhappy with Jeff, but Jeff was connected to one of the producers, not like a son, but he was connected enough that there was no talk of him not being on the show anymore. Interesting. Right. But that was the last time any of the actors drove the golf cart.
Oh, yeah, I bet. That's funny.
Wow.
I'd have killed him.
Yes.
Now that was legendarily the same thing had happened with Dino De Laurentiis. Somebody had run a golf cart into his car back in the earlier 80s.
Oh, no kidding.
Like 84, 85 when he was at his heyday. And they tell the story of him coming out. Apparently he's a very small man, or was a very small man. And so it was like a little person running up and yelling at somebody in Italian that, they were upset about the damage to their car.
Oh, no, that's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Good. That's great. Oh my God.
Craig, tell me about the autograph behind your shoulder there of Renee.
That is Renee Zellweger. She appeared in Interview magazine, I think it is. And that issue came out while we were shooting. And I ran and grabbed a copy and asked her to sign it. And I don't think you can read it because of the glare. But it said the very first words, "My first ever autographed picture. Thanks for
no
making
kidding.
me feel all important and stuff."
Oh, dude.
She said, "To my favorite Wrangler, Craig, thanks for looking after me and for sharing all of the certainly interesting jokes. You're the best, Renee." So, yeah, I have her first autograph there on the wall.
She's adorable.
Very cool.
Oh, she was. She was wonderful. She had a dog. Oh, this is a weird thing. The entire cast had dogs with them. That's the only time I've ever had that happen.
Wow.
She had one named Dylan. He was I don't know what he was, but he was big and fluffy and really sweet. He was a really sweet dog. He was my favorite of the entire bunch. She called him Wolf and Dylan. They'd been together for years, and they were wonderful. So I had no problem with that. But Johnny Whitworth had this dog named Socks, and so throughout the shoot, any given moment, he would lean out the door and just bellow, "Socks!" And I'm like, does he need, are his feet cold? Does he need something from wardrobe? No, he's calling his dog again. Okay, got it. Liv had a Chihuahua that was terrified, and if you up the ante on the terrified 1 iota, it would dump all over. And it dumped like a Great Dane. It was this dog this big, and it crapped bigger than itself. And it did it around the craft service table a couple of times. And I'm like, how hygienic could this be? This cat or dog dumping like this. Robin Tunney had 1. Ethan had 2. Who am I missing? Lucas, I'm forgetting the actor's name. I don't know that he had 1. He may not have. But he and Renee were dating at the time. Uh-huh. They had gotten together on Dazed and Confused and had proceeded together to shoot a film called Love in a 45 that not many people have seen. And then they came to our show. Uh-huh. And so I think he just shared with Dylan Wolf. Yeah. He was just co-owner of Dylan at the time. That broke up, by the way, because, and I'll break this with you guys, he slept with one of the other cast members somewhere along the way, and Renee found out about it, and so they were not together at the end of the shooting.
Yeah, I bet.
There you go.
Wow. Yeah. That makes for an awkward day.
Yeah, it does.
I did like the homage to Dazed and Confused up on the cash register. Mm-hmm. I spotted that. And I was trying to figure out
this is a fun thing. You mentioned the cash register. The entire record store was built inside of Soundstage 4, which is also where the tanks were, where the turtles came up from the water, and it has the largest no-seam blue screen in the world, maybe still to this day.
Really?
So that Soundstage has seen a lot of action over many decades. But they built the entire record store in there, all the front glass, and then a block of Front Street was actually recreated inside the Soundstage. Wow. And they had electric cars that were like golf carts, but they looked like full automobiles. And so that's the bulk of what you see. But there are shots in the opening when they come to open the store. Mm-hmm. There are literally Walt Lloyd, who shot the film, the director of photography, genius, because there are shots that are literally soundstage exterior downtown, just back and forth. And I defy you to tell me that you can see any difference in the lighting.
Had you not just told me what you told me, I would have never known that was film. I mean, the interiors you just assume are a set, mm-hmm. but the exteriors I would have never
guessed.
I'd have never guessed that any of that was on a set.
It's beautiful.
That's freaking good. Yeah. Those guys were beyond talented to make it look that good.
They really were. And downtown, though, what was really fun when we were shooting the exteriors, they had recreated the record store 3 feet in to give the actors enough room to get into the doors. Mm-hmm. And so literally every item that was on the soundstage, the magazine rack, the cash wrap, and then it was just a giant photograph. The rest of the store was just a giant photograph. But the first 3 feet was every item to the letter reproduced downtown.
Wow.
And, yeah. So that movie magic is why I love being in the business, because
that's
some
incredible.
cool shit.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is absolutely incredible. See, again, now I'm gonna go back and watch that and see if I can spot this shit. See, that's the kind of stuff that I look for in movies. Like, okay, where did they goof up? Well, there's no goof up in this movie. Honest to God, I'm watching it.
Yeah.
I didn't spot anything. Nothing jumped out at me. Nothing took me out of the moment. Nothing. Not a damn thing. That's incredible.
So all of the CDs in the store on the set were real. But what the trick was they had two or three that were just all kinds of different stuff. And then they had this one stock of this one particular CD, and they had thousands of them, and that filled in all the rest.
Right.
And that stock was the shot in Wilmington Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle 2 soundtrack. I don't know if they just had those laying around because they thought it was going to be a bigger soundtrack, so somebody bought them in Wilmington and they were available. Well, I don't know. But they had pallets of them. With the set already built, there were pallets out on the studio lot between sound stages 8 and 4 that were higher than my head. You could walk between them. And it all was Teenage Mutant Ninja 2 soundtracks.
Wow.
Every kid in my family got it for Christmas that year.
Whether they liked it or not.
I took like a box home of them, But they were so worried about the record store that for the first part of the shoot, for weeks, we had 24-hour security sitting there guarding this set because they thought people, I don't know why they thought the crew was just going to wholesale walk out with the CDs. We did steal some. I have 3 or 4 in my collection to this day that I took off that set. But I, wasn't going to walk out with armloads. But
yeah.
Here's
back up the truck.
Connie Stevens' daughter's CD. I'll listen to that.
I gotta have it.
Yeah. So,
got some bangers on there.
That's funny. Who wrote the song that Rex Manning was singing? Do you know?
Oh, Say No More, Monomore. Yeah, I don't know who wrote that. They went out to Wrightsville Beach and shot that on a Saturday or Sunday during that rehearsal period. A small production company called Twinkle Dune that did a lot of little things around here and did some features. They went out there with him, and they were tasked to shoot 10 seconds or something. It was supposed to not. They didn't think there was going to be very much shown.
Right.
And they went out there and shot the whole thing. Like, they shot it as a real music video beginning to end. And it ended up working out in their favor because, as it turned out, they could have much more of it available on the screens than, what they thought they were going to be showing. Since they had it available, they went ahead and showed way more of it. I think Maxwell stepped up to the plate shooting that. I think he did a wonderful job with those dancers out there.
That was just funny. And those are the kinds of things that I wonder about. Like, was it the writer of the script that wrote the song, or was it somebody that was more musically inclined? I mean, because I have no idea. I don't even know if I was writing a script, if I would write the words to a song. I would just be like, and song.
And song, yeah. I think Say No More, Monomore was in there because I think it's in the script. I think he says it at some point, or somebody says it to him. So I think they had the title, but I think the rest of the writing was somebody else. I will say everybody did their own singing. So that is him singing.
Really?
And it is Renee Zellweger singing, and it is Coyote singing.
I was wondering about that.
Okay. Renee went to, they all pre-recorded the tracks. We had to listen to that for almost 2 weeks, being blasted around downtown. I don't know how anybody slept down there. And I love that song, Sugar High. They've never released the version that has her singing, unfortunately.
No, really?
All of the soundtracks only have Coyote's original version, which has saucier lyrics. It's actually, it was toned down for the movie a little bit, so.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, damn.
I didn't know that.
Well, I know she never thought she did a very good job, so.
Perfectly fine.
Yeah. Was embarrassed by it. Yeah, I thought she did a wonderful job.
You're singing punk, it's fine.
It was great. It was great. Yeah. And that's that. Him, I even forgot what I was going to ask on that. Dave, you have any other questions?
You know what? Any question that I might have had, you've already answered. That was like,
I can come up with more stories. Don't worry.
The stories are fantastic. I do have. Crud. There was a question. I forgot what.
Of course.
now that you asked me,
See?
my mind
put you on the spot.
Which is like the story of my life whenever we're doing one of these. In general, are you doing more behind the camera work? Do you do more in front of camera work? Is it a mix? And what do you prefer as
I'm a ham. I enjoy being on camera, but I'm also not big on rejection, so I never pursued it.
right?
90% of your life is getting rejected.
Yeah.
So, but because I'm a ham and my bosses would put me up for things. I did read-throughs when they would do read-throughs on a show called American Gothic. It was on CBS in 95 and 96. And they would try to, on lunches, read the next script to see if it needed tweaking. And they couldn't bring in all the day players. So the guy who, says whatever, if they went that away,
Right.
they wouldn't bring in those guys because it was big money to bring them in for just a script read. So I took over reading all of the non-regular cast member parts in those scripts. Right. Well, that led to one of the producer's assistant walked out with a cast list for the next episode about halfway through and handed me a pile of them and said, distribute these to everybody, but make sure you look at them. And I'm like, all right. And I started looking through this cast list, and the last name listed was me. They had given me a speaking role as a radio technician in a radio station. Nice. And that's the kind of thing, those things came my way a few times here and there. And so I still get residual checks. I don't get anything from Empire Records, but a Dawson's Creek speaking role and an American Gothic speaking role are still, buying me a dinner 3 or 4 times a year. Just money showing up.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that at all. So you do a lot of, are you still doing the wrangling?
Well, I did assistant direct a horror short called Mercy that is just now making some festivals. Got completed. It was hard. We were shooting around the pandemic in 2020 and 2021. Yeah. And we wrapped it in last March, not the March just now, a year ago, March. And it's finally, it took a while to get the effects together and everything. It runs about 26, 28 minutes. It's a nice little demonic possession on an island horror thing. It's
nice.
Pretty good.
Okay, nice.
I'm really interested to have it get out there. But I was the first assistant director. I helped run the set, which is what that guy does.
Okay,
and,
cool.
I really enjoyed being back on a set. Really enjoyed upping the spook factor. I tried to point things out that we could make it a little spookier.
Right.
Somebody, 2 parents are talking, and their daughter, who has mysteriously changed and gotten older in just days, is supposed to walk into the shot and surprise them. And there was a column in the house we were shooting in, and I said, well, why don't we see if we can tuck her behind that and have her just like from nowhere, she just steps out from behind this column. And the column was so thin, thankfully she was a slender actress.
Right.
I don't think the audience will ever believe that a person could be back there. They're going to have to think it's an effect. But we really did just tuck her in, and she kind of sucked her gut in and just stood back there until the point, and then she just steps out and says, stop it, you two, or whatever. And that was the kind of thing I was bringing to it and having fun with, was trying to find these places where you could just bring the creepy up a little bit.
Right.
And so I'm not a listed writer on it or anything like that, but I'm just pleased to have, I think, added a little more, to the mix. And I would love to do more of that sort of thing. It doesn't, those jobs don't pay anywhere near what I need, as a middle-aged man in America. So I'll keep the other job. But if I get an opportunity to step onto a set in any capacity, I'll take it, because it does kind of feed a part of my soul. Really.
Yeah, I thoroughly understand that. Absolutely.
Now, I do have a question, Craig. What's the favorite production? What's your most favorite production that you worked on?
This one's up there. Empire Records is certainly one of them, just because of that rehearsal period and the things and the happy accidents and the way that it does have that cult following. Dawson's Creek is another, because that touched a lot of especially girls, but boys too, that of a certain age. That was their show. Wednesday nights on the WB, they didn't miss it, and it informs them to this day. And the Netflix, it hits Netflix, and it's #1 on their streaming, top 10 things in America, and it was on there for a few weeks as the #1.
Wow.
So, and people are rediscovering it, and I interact with the fans on Facebook of that show, and new people discovering the show in their 30s and 40s and still watching it and enjoying it, because it was of the time when they were that age, even if they didn't watch it then. So that's a favorite. American Gothic was a hard show, very hard show to work on, but I'm proud of it. It's Gary Cole is an evil Southern sheriff. Only ran one season on CBS. It was before CSI, and they were Murder, She Wrote and Diagnosis Murder, and we were too edgy, and they got rid of us. They bounced us all around the schedule and then canceled us after one season. And then a couple years later, here comes CSI and all the blood that we weren't allowed to show. Gouts of it. Okay, fine. Did a lot of TV movies. Those are pretty generic. I enjoyed the work. Got to meet a lot of fun people. And had weird jobs. I was hired to be Eddie Albert's cue card guy on a Christmas movie where he was going to play Santa Claus. And they realized, Eddie Albert was 90 something at the time. They said, so we want to bring him to Wilmington, North Carolina in August and put him in a velour or, whatever Santa suit. We're going to kill him.
Yeah.
And so he backed out. And when he backed out, Bruno Kirby's dad, this Bruno Sr., took over the role. He didn't need a cue card guy. So I no longer had a job, unfortunately, but I was hired for it. I would have been his cue card guy. I was, let's see, what other weird ones? I was a locations scout, or locations guy on a TV movie called Mafia Marriage. I was an actor's assistant. The great actor Roy Brocksmith, you guys would probably best remember him as the guy who tries to convince Arnold Schwarzenegger he's dreaming in Total Recall.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to have a psychotic snap if you don't take this pill.
Yeah, the guy was sweating.
I was his assistant on a movie called Road to Wellville. And weirdly, he was playing Anthony Hopkins' assistant in the movie, and then I'm his assistant in real life. And so that got me a meet with Anthony Hopkins. I get to hang out, and Anthony Hopkins, thrusts his hand out to me and goes, "Hi, Tony." Okay.
Wow.
Sure, Sir Hopkins.
Yeah.
Tony. From here on.
We're on first name basis.
Yeah, exactly. And what was cool about that, we went to the studio for a costume fitting or something, and I was accompanying him, just Roy. And Roy, Mr. and Mrs. Hopkins of the time, I think they're no longer together, but they were walking across the lot, and they were like, "Oh, Roy." So all four of us come together, and I assumed it was going to be the three of them talking, and I was just like, I at least stand.
Yeah.
And no, Hopkins was, we're talking about this, and here's my opinion. What do you think of that? And just drew me into and it was a four-way conversation for the entirety of the 10 minutes. Wow. I couldn't speak more highly of somebody who was that big of a star, Oscar-winning, mega star, and that pleasant, and Tony to me. So
yeah, that's nice. That's always nice to hear, that somebody that you think could be very arrogant turns out to be very down to earth.
Yeah.
That's always nice to hear that. That's very cool.
You ready for the negative?
Oh, sure. I love the negatives. Those are the greatest.
Kate Jackson, terrible.
Really?
Yeah, I did a TV movie with her. She was awful. She was horrible to everybody around her. Made us wait for no reason. I worked with Shannon Doherty and Kate Jackson, and I prefer Shannon Doherty.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Wow.
So there you go.
That's great.
Yeah, she is my single worst. If anybody says who was the worst you worked with, Kate Jackson. Instantly, no problem.
Oh, wow.
That's fantastic. See, I love the dirt.
yeah. Most people
guys. Do. Oh, I can tell you. I will tell you. I don't care. What's she going to do to me at this point? So, she liked pharmaceuticals.
Oh, really?
Rumor had it she liked pharmaceuticals. Let me restate that. Well, something happened and she fell out of bed one night. What? And messed her arm up so badly it was broken, and they had to put a cast on it.
Wow.
She broke her own arm. But popular gossip on the set said she broke her arm to get pharmaceuticals. So,
okay.
Well, that made the film, though, problematic because now she has a cast on her arm. And so this movie is called Justice in a Small Town. I highly recommend watching it just to watch how they covered up her cast, because the scenes were shot. It was one of those where literally every day, you're shooting something from day one, you're shooting something from the third week, you're shooting this and that. So in the opening scene, she's serving pancakes to the kids with an oven mitt that goes up to here on her arm to cover the cast. No human, this is a radiation suit. It's not an oven mitt.
Here's your isotopes.
Exactly. With syrup. Don't forget the syrup. And then other scenes, she's always got a coat or a purse over the cast, but it's just spotty. And you can tell, the scene starts and she's got the coat over her arm. this is a broken arm scene,
Gotcha.
But that's that's what we did. We did that with her for an NBC TV movie. But that got me, I hung out with Terry O'Quinn. He was in that movie from Lost and The Stepfather, and John Shea, a fine actor, and some other great people. One of Sabrina's aunts,
right,
Roderick, was in that film.
Wow.
So when you're on a show with somebody like a Kate Jackson that you're not really having a lot of fun with, you find your fun with whomever else you get.
Right.
It's a positive. So
that's great. That's absolutely great. Well, you know what? I guess I would be like in any other job that you have. You have the people that are just total jerks, and then you have the people that you go hang out with.
You have the cool kids.
like Scott and I, we found each other. Everybody else was jerks.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody else.
Oh yeah, we were a clique, sure.
Those guys.
Yeah. Definitely. All right. Well, hey, let's go through final thoughts on the movie. I'm sure, Craig, you're going to recommend it, but to anybody that hasn't seen it, what would you have to say to them?
It is a slice of life. It's a time capsule from that time, the mid '90s. It's although there would still be kids working jobs in that fashion, that particular job, the record store, is not really a going concern much anymore. So if you lived through that time, it's highly recommended that you would want to take a look at that and just see. As I said before, I think the cast is doing a fine job bringing the truth of that script. I think it hits. It's got some comedy, it's got some drama. It changes the genre. It bends them all well and puts them into a fine mix. It doesn't lean too far in any direction. And I think some of it really holds up. I mean, to this day, Empire Records open until midnight. It's still, a great joke.
Right.
So there you go.
Yeah, that's I loved it. I like I said, I watched it once, barely remembered it. Watched it last night. It was like watching it for the first time. Slice of life, day in the life of movies are my thing, and the fact that the writer took so many different people's lives and put them all together and made it all work. They all work out. The story just completely falls together at the end, and you're waiting for it. I'm trying to figure out. I'm watching it last night, trying to figure out. Okay, now how did the writer? How is the person going to put all these together? How is this all going to come together? And you just see it, just like a gear coming together. It's like, holy crap! I didn't see that one coming.
Right.
like when Warren is shooting up the place. He'll never give me a job. He'll never give me a job. You want a job, Warren? Can I have a job? I mean, how stupid. That is such a stupid thing. Nobody would ever hire that kid, but it works. It works by the time that the movie's over. You're like, that guy would hire him. That guy would absolutely hire him because he sees a lost soul.
Just as he did with Lucas before him. So
yeah,
exactly.
And I want to say Bonnie, but that's not the character's name. The girl that shaves her head.
Deborah is the character.
Yeah, Deborah, the character Deborah. He's trying. He opens up the door. He looks in. He says, "Are you okay? Do you want to talk?" And she just goes off on some little tangent. He's like, "Well, okay," and he just walks away, shuts the door. I mean, he's trying. He's trying to be the best boss in the world without even trying.
Yeah.
So yeah, I absolutely highly recommend this movie. It is, like you said, a slice of life of the '90s. There are certain things you're not going to see anymore. You might be able to find a used record store now.
Yeah.
As that kind of
those are starting to pop
to
up.
it. But God, I would have loved to have worked in that place back in the '90s. Shit, I would have loved that. That'd have been just fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. That would have been awesome. And that's just to go off of everything that's already been stated. It is a slice of life. It's a look at multiple different characters, and I think what's done so well about that is there's somebody that all of us can probably relate to in some way or another. So you can kind of see yourself there. For me, it was like a little nostalgia trip. And if anything hits those strings for me, I'm right back in. You got me.
Right.
And that's what this excellent soundtrack that this movie had.
God,
it's like, man,
that takes you right back into it.
I'm right back to the 90s. And it's like, that was awesome. I highly recommend it. Definitely. I can't believe I slept on it all this time, but it was well worth the watch. I'd like to take a moment to thank you again, Craig, for coming on and
Yes.
sharing the dirt and the good stuff and
Thank you very
just
much.
some good stories.
Thank
Really
you guys. I appreciate it. Yeah.
No, we really appreciate it. And anybody that's
Blast.
watching, go watch Empire Records. Look for Craig in line.
Yes.
It's the
The
outfit.
best performance of the movie.
The outfit that you're wearing is fantastic.
Yes.
I still have it. It still fits.
Get out of town.
I attended a screening of the movie last year on Rex Manning Day, and as their special guest, and I went in costume. I even shaved back and
No
put
shit.
glasses on. I tried to recreate me in '94 as much as I could, and I was signing autographs and taking pictures of the people, which was astounding.
That's awesome.
That's freaking fantastic, man. That is great.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's freaking great. Rex Manning Day. It's Rex Manning Day.
April 8th.
April 8th.
Every year.
I'm going to have to remember that.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, thanks for tuning in. Thanks again, Craig. And be sure and check in with us next week when we have something coming your way. I think it's a trip into the 80s. Who's up for some fritters with Motel Hell? Come join us.
It takes all kinds of critters to make those.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. See y'all next week.
Cheers.